It is Friday morning and the markets have just opened. Well, obviously it's not morning here in the UK. It's about, almost 3 o'clock, but that is not the point. Markets have still opened very recently, and today so far for this stock, which is of course Naked Brands, we are seeing a little bit of a decrease in share price. Well, in this episode, we're talking fundamentals for Naked. Of course, we are going to take a quick look at how the share price has been moving, over the past few days and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, we're looking at some of the benefits of the company, some of the drawbacks of the company, and most importantly, looking at their new approach in much detail. So we have looked at Naked Brands many a time before on the channel. You guys who are long-time viewers will know this. We used to cover it all the time because the stock was quite popular. People did really like this one. And if we do have a quick look as to why, over the past 6 months, realistically, we've seen the share price go from about, down here, about 7 cents, all the way up to these highs, which were over $1.39. So you guys can imagine if you'd bought this one back down here, around, 7 cents, and held all the way until the highs, you would have made a ton of money. And that is why people do love Naked stock. But you know what? Unfortunately, ever since we have seen the share price plummet consecutively, the past month is completely red. And again, it is really quite a steep sell-off that we are seeing starting off the last 30 days on a price of about 96 cents. Obviously, we're almost half of that now, down to 47 cents. So things really not doing well for the stock recently. But the question is there any hope for this stock? Can it turn itself around? Well, guys, I need to say it. Nobody knows it for sure. Nobody has a clue. But of course, I'm giving my opinions in this video, and we're also going to be looking at some of the facts and figures which definitely could back up whether they are or aren't going to be able to turn the stock around. All of that is coming up in this video, so make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because we talk about all sorts of stocks every single day, making about 5 to 10 videos per day. It is a lot of effort, and yes, we have missed 2 days of uploading this week, but you can imagine it is obviously a lot to try and cover. Anyway, let's get into this video looking at Naked Brands. So we're going to get the boring bit out of the way first. We are just going to take a moment to look at the share price in a bit more detail, obviously on these technical charts. Again, this is all reflected what I'm talking about, looking at this big steep candle up here, which took us to these highs that we saw. Obviously, the wick of this candle does appear to be sticking out well above the $2.50 range, even past the $3 range, and these, of course, were the highs that we saw. It wasn't to last, as the share price did plummet down on the same day. It does appear to be the case, and of course, the next 2 or 3 days afterwards saw a very, very steep sell-off in share price. Now after that we saw a bit of a rally back up. We passed the $2 mark once more, but again it wasn't to last, and the share price came back to settle above the $1.50 range, and even then things weren't to last, as it did continue to drop below even the $1 range. And once we got past the $1 range, well, now we are coming close to 50-cent range, and we have even dropped below that. Now, if we can have a quick look at the more recent candlesticks, this sell-off does appear to be leveling out at the current level. I mean, yes, the day today has only just started, so it is going to be pretty hard to predict what's going to happen for the rest of the day. But at least for 1, 2, or at least 3 days, we have seen this sell-off actually be quite steep, but obviously it hasn't really gone past a level of about 40 cents, which so far is pretty decent. I believe that we haven't even gone below 45 cents. So yeah, we have gone below that 50 cent range, but of course we haven't dropped below 45 cents, or at least 40 cents, which is pretty decent. So it is good to see this one hopefully slowing down. Again, today is going to be quite crucial to see if this one's going to slow down even more, and then we have the potential of bringing ourselves back around, or to see if it's going to continue to sell off and we're going to see consistent drops for the price of the stock. Well, we have a lot to talk about. Let's start off by looking at what the company does. So if we go over to their website, which is irnakedbrands.com, we can basically get a bit of a description of what they do. It's not on this page apparently, it is on the next one, so let's have a quick look at what the company is saying about themselves. Well, here is a quick company overview. Company overview, it lists: Naked Brands is a leading intimate apparel and swimwear company with a diverse portfolio of brands, catering to a broad customer segment through its highly productive portfolio of 11 internationally recognized company-owned and licensed brands. So you can see a little bit about what the company does there. We can give it a full read where it says Naked Brands Group design, manufacture and market their stable brands across multiple market segments. Naked Brands Group was incorporated on May the 17th of 2009 and merged with Brendan Group Holdings in 2018. Brands include Denom, is that? Denom, I think it is. By Denom as well, Fayerom, Pleasure State, Lovable, Naked Hickory, I don't know what these brands are called, but there we go. There are a few of the brands, and we can just see what they're doing. Anyway, let's get away from the brands and look at what they do in a bit more detail. So, obviously, their products are available in 44 countries worldwide through 300 plus retail doors, a growing network of e-commerce and sites, and 57 company-owned Bendon retail outlet stores in Australia, New Zealand as well. So down here, Naked Brands Group global supply chain controls sourcing, manufacturing and production of over 30 partner facilities. Naked Brands Group is committed to exemplary integrity and ethics in the conduct of business and relations with its stakeholders. So again, good stuff there that we are seeing. Apparently the company is saying a lot of good stuff about themselves, and you know what, they would do, but we can just get a bit of an understanding of what the company does. Again, this last line simply reads, the company is excited to further revolutionize its lingerie industry through its dedication to design, quality, and innovation and customers. So again, I almost got all the way through reading that without messing up, but obviously on the last two lines, I made a few mistakes. But anyway, it gives us a quick description of what the company does, if you were wondering. So just to sum things up really simply, they obviously work in intimate clothing, apparel, and swimwear as well. We can see a little bit about that in their products if you do want to have a quick look on their homepage. You know, a few of their underwears with their models on the screen, obviously modeling them. So there we go, some interesting things to see there. But let's get back to obviously looking at the press releases from the company, because I do find this to be interesting. It talks about some of the things which have happened more recently. Some of the things have happened a while ago, but obviously the ones that happened a while ago also do help us to get a bit of context on what is going on with the company. So we're going to start off by reading from a bit longer ago, because I think this is quite important. So we're going to start off on this piece of information up here, which was listed on the 27th of November. Naked Brands Group Limited was granted a 180-day extension by Nasdaq to regain compliance with minimum bid price rules. So you guys may or may not know about the Nasdaq's rules. Obviously, you do have to be compliant with them. It involves things like a share price above certain prices and whatnot. And right now, Naked Brands, or at least at the time of filing this document, Naked Brands actually did not comply. So they were given 180 days to do so. We'll have to see what does happen, because 180 days is obviously quite a long time ago, and even from November it is still quite a long time away. So that is a bit of context on what is going on. Down here we can see back on January the 27th, Naked Brands announced a pricing of $50 million registered direct offering at the market. So there we go, some more interesting things that have happened in the past. Back on February, we can see that Naked Brands actually regains compliance with Nasdaq minimum bid price rule, which is great, and we can just see a lot more things up here. So obviously they had their definitive agreement for $100 million private placement, so that is interesting as well. Back in March of 2021, this was on the 29th actually, so towards the end of the month, we have this really interesting piece of news which talks about what the company is intended to do. I've spoken about this multiple times in the past, but I think it doesn't hurt to go over it again, because this is really what we are looking to see for the company. So back in the last episode, when we were last looking at this stock ages ago, we talked about how the company is looking to transform, because things aren't necessarily doing as good as they can for a company like this. Obviously, with a lot of their stuff being in stores and a lot of stores being closed for obvious reasons at the moment, they're not really going to be getting the most sales that they possibly can. And now we've seen this information about them working on e-commerce platforms. So we're going to get to all of that in just a moment. But yeah, back in the last video, we did talk about why this was significant and how if the company was to stick to their word and realistically work on turning the company around, they could actually have a decent business. Of course, people did buy into the stock for the hype, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But ultimately, Naked Brands, it is hard to say. It's a speculative play anyway, but you know, we're going to get to that in a moment as well. Anyway, let's get back to this news article, reading what we have to say. So Naked Brands Group provides business update on transformation to pure play e-commerce platform. Let's have a quick read of some important things down here. So we have this quick note here saying that the balance sheet was solidified with $270 million in cash and no debts. That's good. We have growth capital available to fund the development of Naked Brands' digital transformation to become an e-commerce leader in intimate apparel market. So again, good stuff there. That is good. That definitely could help them to grow going forwards. The last of these bullet points that we do have is prominent finance leader Simon Tip Tip joins the board of directors, bringing significant capital markets and M&A experience. So again, somebody who's experienced on their market, or at least on their board, that is fantastic. And again, for a company like this, if they are serious about turning themselves around, which they really should be, they are going to have to work on this. Because right now, yes, the company is obviously not doing too bad, but realistically, guys, if we're going to see the share price rocket, we need the company's fundamentals to come with it. And again, they do need to show that they are being serious about this. They need to put things into play which are going to help the company to grow. And I think, putting Mr. Simon Tip on the board is a really smart move in the direction. On top of that, we have this growth capital, which is fantastic, and a great balance sheet. Anyway, let's get back to the lower part of this article, which briefly discusses what we need to know about the company trying to transform. So we can see Naked Brands, a global leader in, intimate apparel and all that kind of stuff, which we have read before. Right, so the bullet points really does sum things up in a very simple way. Obviously, the article goes into a bit more detail, but we're just going to skim and scan over what we might want to know. So you have this information about the $270 million in cash with no debt, and it talks about how this can be used, for growth and all that kind of stuff. By the way, at any point, feel free to pause your screens to obviously have a quick read of this information yourself, but it does tell us things that we do need to know. Anyway, so you can see up here, to complement e-commerce transformation, they previously announced that Naked has realigned its leadership team with the reappointment of Mr. Davis Rai as CEO and appointment of Simon Tip as a seasoned investment banker and M&A executive to board the directors to assist the building of the e-commerce platform. So Mr. Tip, which is this guy over here, of course, on the board of directors, he has over 30 years of diversified business, capital markets and investment banking experience, managing both public and private companies across various sectors. Right, let's take a moment to look at this because this is quite important in my opinion. So again, Mr. Simon Tip, we can understand from this article here, has over 30 years of experience. That is a long time. He's worked in multiple different sectors, he's worked in multiple different areas of business, and he could be an interesting person to bring to the team to obviously help the company to grow. If we can have a quick read down here, we can see, obviously, this is a very exciting time for e-commerce as COVID-19 pandemic has brought forward a complete digital-first environment across all brick-and-mortar consumer outlets. Very, very true. A lot more people shopping online, we already know this, and to be honest, unfortunately, even as much as I do like going to shops, I think a lot of people are probably going to continue to shop, online for the convenience that it does offer, even after the pandemic. So, you know what? Transforming to an actual online company working with e-commerce might not be a bad thing for this business at the current time. Anyway, getting back to this article a bit lower, the acquisition environment, which is rich with opportunity and attractive valuations, has already begun. With working with Justin and his team to identify potential opportunities, Naked is focused on innovative technology offerings, including, at best-in-class personalized shopping experiences utilizing AI. So again, they are working on really helping the company to be a lot better going forwards. So you can see what they're doing here, a lot of work towards the e-commerce way of doing business. I think this is going to be a smart move long term because, as I have mentioned, people often do shop online. And another interesting point, which I do think is, interesting, and this is only my personal opinion, what we can see from their homepage is obviously Naked Brands obviously advertise a lot of underwear and that kind of stuff. And you've got to ask yourself, how many people are perhaps comfortable with shopping for underwear in, shops with actual people. So on the other hand, there is a convenience for people shopping for perhaps intimate clothing and underwear and all that kind of stuff online, and that definitely could have benefits for Naked to help them to expand their business even further using the online, sector and e-commerce. So I think this is a really unique opportunity. Perhaps it's a perfect time to be getting into the e-commerce sector. We had more good news for Naked very recently, by the way. This is coming from Seeking Alpha. We can see down here, Seeking Alpha says that Naked Brands rallies as Alt Global takes a stake. So this was published back on the 8th of April, so quite recently, but not yesterday, obviously. Anyway, it tells us about how Naked Brands has shot higher as trading as Alt Global reported a 6.41% passive stake in the company. Really interesting stuff, and if we can have a quick read about what the company about what the article says down here, it does give us a quick, understanding of what the company is doing. Obviously, it's a 6.41 passive stake in the company, which is good, and I think, you know what, this was something that we needed. It shows that another company does have interest and believes in the potential of Naked Brands, and this could be a good thing going forwards. So we've talked about all the good in this video, but you know what, it's not going to be a balanced argument if we don't talk about some of the bad. This article is coming from Investor Place, and it talks about some of the negatives of Naked stock. It talks about things like the catalyst, which we saw, of course, with this Alt Global 6.4% stake, but also does talk about some of the negatives. It talks about how the company is still facing hurdles, which is true, and of course they find e-commerce appealing, which is the case, but there's also a risk that this may not, pay off, and obviously they could be banking too heavily on this retail method. Again, this is true, it is a huge gamble, but obviously we're looking at high risk potential, high reward if they do turn themselves around. We're obviously looking at other things, which we can see e-commerce saw a huge spike in engagement because of the pandemic. It's also come down from its peak. Again, as I have mentioned, a lot more people will probably be happy to shop online. But I know for me at least, and probably for a lot of you guys, as soon as we could get back into the shops, it was a nice thing to do. So again, some people will still be shopping online, but obviously some people will inevitably return back to their stores, and that is something that we need to happen anyway. Anyway, Investor Place is saying that this is a bad thing potentially for Naked, and we can see down here, basically 16% of total retail sales were conducted online, and in quarter 3 it dipped to 14.2%, and in quarter 4 it was down to 14%. So again, this was 2020, and it shows that this sector was taking a bit of a dip. But like I said earlier, I think it definitely does depend on the company, and I could be wrong here, guys, but it's just my opinion. I think with what Naked Brands are doing, they sell a lot of quote-unquote intimate clothing, and perhaps would people be more comfortable shopping for that online? You just don't know. Anyway, we talk about how speculators could potentially scalp some profits down here, but ultimately I think that this article is saying that there are still some hurdles for Naked stock, and that is very true. We've talked about a lot of good stuff in this video, but bear in mind it isn't all good for Naked, and they still do have a lot in their, in their way, which could work against them and could actually backfire on them. As this article does say, if their transformation to e-commerce doesn't work out, that would obviously have a negative effect for the company, and it's just things like that that, in my opinion, we do need to remember. So would I consider Naked stock to be a buy right now? Well, as I have said many a time when it comes to these penny stocks, it is speculative. We already know that it's quite high risk for what we are dealing with. The thing about penny stocks, and usually OTC stocks, but obviously in this case it is apparently on the Nasdaq, the thing about these cheap stocks is it's a case of, let's just face it, 99% of these, or at least 90% of these, are not going to do well. It's about finding the ones that are going to do well. So it is obviously a speculative play. Statistically, the odds are against us, but I think where we are with Naked, we do have some potential. I think this company needs a lot of work doing to it, and they are doing that work slowly but surely. And for that reason, I would say Naked, don't put too much money into it. Perhaps if you are going to put money into it, hold it for a few years so that we can see the company transform. Obviously, if it goes in their favour, if they do transform, we might get the stock price above $1, $2, maybe even higher, and stay stable in that range. And if it doesn't work in their favour, we could see the share price continue to fall a bit lower, or even stay flat where we are right now, which wouldn't give us much profit at all. So there we go, guys, that's my opinions on Naked. I don't really hate Naked Brands. I think it's a very interesting company. I like that they are doing things to turn the company around, and again, I think long term this could hopefully benefit them if they do play their cards right. So that's my opinions, guys. Thank you for joining me for this quick video. See you all again very, very soon, probably tonight, for more videos. So goodbye.